Lakshmi, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very well. Thank you.
So we all are here now, and we'll be starting in a minute's time.
Wonderful.
So we'll be going in full screen. Once we go live, so we all will be coming in full screen.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. So we'll get started now.
Hi, Lakshmi.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hey,
Padmaja, Ravi. Nice to see you guys, San Francisco,
Hi,
and
Lakshmi.
a couple
pleasure.
of them I'm seeing for the first time now.
Yes,
Hey, Lakshmi.
San Francisco must be very early.
Yeah, it's very early here. Now it's 30, not so bad.
Okay.
All right. So, friends, during any black swan events like the coronavirus, businesses and especially startups need to think differently. And what a great time to discuss about rebooting the business operations when the government of India has just announced yesterday evening about the phase-wise reopening of economy and business operations. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our viewers from different parts of the world, including Argentina, Australia, Canada, and of course, India. This is PK Tiwari, and I welcome you all to the first Super Sunday series of Startup Pathshala. I feel absolutely privileged to have such a world class panel with me today, and we'll be talking about business rebooting, supply chain disruption, funding strategy, and collaboration. We'll also take few questions live from our viewers. So I welcome Padmaja Ruparel, co-founder Indian Angel Network, Lakshmi Kotluri, CEO DCF Venture, and also co-founder Jabon, Ravi K, Trade Commissioner, Ontario Government of Canada, Francisco, CEO Scalable Argentina, and Shashank Randev, founder VC 100X. So I think we can now get started with the round of introduction. So Padmaja, if I may ask you to, uh, start from you, and maybe you can also mention about how your company is coping up with this pandemic.
Okay. Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you to CIYI for inviting me to this webinar. Uh, I also appreciate the audience on a Sunday evening in India and perhaps a very early Sunday morning in the US and Canada and a late Sunday night in Australia. It's hard, but appreciate your joining. My name is Padmaja Ruparal, as PK mentioned. I am a co-founder of Indian Angel Network, which is a group of almost 500 investors from around the world, perhaps the largest in the world now, and the founding partner of a VC fund. Um, we have tried, our vision is to create India's single largest platform for seed and early stage investing, enabling entrepreneurs from literally raising 25 lakhs, which is about $30,000, to about 7 million, which is about 50 crores of Indian rupees. So that's our vision, and that's what we try and do. We bring in money, we bring in mentoring, we bring in global networks, and we really, I think, put our shoulder to the wheel to help our companies grow. Yes, I agree. What a condom. It's a very difficult situation. I mean, pandemic and the global recession together has created a very devastating scenario. And today, as about 60 days into what probably is the toughest lockdown in any country in the world, we have started to open up. I think the hard choice that our Prime Minister had to make was between life and livelihood. And I think that has started to emerge. And we are moving towards livelihood. And as we emerge, I think we are facing a new set of opportunities, but also a new set of challenges. Some of the opportunities that we have seen in our portfolio companies, in our ecosystem, are quite interesting and I think unique. In our portfolio of 170 companies or so, we have seen companies which have decelerated on revenue, which have been eroded on talent, which have almost gone down to on their knees. But believe me, today, after 60, 62 days of the lockdown, I stand here very, very proudly to say, as yet, not a single one of them has been wound down. And I think a lot of that has happened because we've all sort of got together, irrespective of whether we are founders or investors, mentors or team members. We've really got down together to say how we can literally battle this out. Every company has its story, every company has had its trajectory. Let me give you some highlights. One of our companies, which is a company in the manufacturing space, was building a product for robotic solar panel cleaners, waterless robotic solar panel cleaners. They were locked down with the lockdown, right? On the 25th of March afternoon, they called me up and said, ma'am, I think this is going to last. We would like to conceptualize a ventilator and work on a ventilator which would work for the COVID situation. Last week, they signed up with one of India's listed public sector units with a product certified, tested, and now actually manufacturing on scale and delivering to the government of India. So it's a product in the nation's fight on COVID. It wasn't easy. It was very difficult, specifically with the logistic issues that we all know we went through. But they came out standing. And they've created now a vision, a long-term strategy to see how do they create a product portfolio of medtech devices. So I think the pandemonium that we have has created an opportunity for companies to literally test themselves at the worst time in life and come up with opportunities which none of us on this panel can even think of. I think it's unleashed imagination, innovation, and energy par excellence. And I believe that the Indian startup ecosystem is going to lead India out of this pandemic and the recession, which both hit the country. So those are the kind of stories, and this is just one of them. I can relay hundreds of them. In the last 60, 65 days, I must have spoken to at least independently on my own, individually, at least to about 3,000 founders. Each one, irrespective of whether they are portfolio companies or otherwise, each one of them has a story to tell. Each one of them has a fight to fight. And each one of them has to still look at the future. And I think what time for livelihood coming into place, we've now got over the life phase. I think the time has now come to say we innovated for the short term, but we now need to build for the long term. And that's, I think, the next focus. And that, I think, is what Prime Minister is trying to also not just towards continuous. I'll stop here, CK, because I can continue forever and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, we'll get back to you very shortly, ma'am. And I think we can move on to Lakshmi if you can your introduction.
Hello, everyone. Thanks to all of the organizers. I know there are multiple partners who brought this fantastic evening together, and there are people from a variety of time zones amongst the audience. So, very welcome to all the audience from various time zones, and excellent group of panelists. So, thank you for putting this together, CK, and all your partners. So my name is Lakshmi Paturi. As you mentioned, I've started my entrepreneurial journey myself as co-founder of Jabong, and I've also built a couple of other companies for India market from scratch. And currently, I run DCF Ventures. DCF Ventures is building the largest platform to bring governments, corporates, and startups to work together, and that's the mission and vision we've been working on. And in the process, we have been working with several governments till recently. We've been working with Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Maharashtra state governments to help build ecosystems, work together with their policies. And now we've also collaborating with some governments to see how can we tweak these policies, or what can we do on the policy front to help the startup ecosystem. So that's something that we do very actively. We just launched pre-COVID. We launched one of the largest innovation hubs, and rightfully, as you said, how are your businesses, dealing with the situation? Just to give you an example, the hub itself obviously is going to. The idea there was to create a very collaborative ecosystem and have everybody across the value chain sit under the same roof. So obviously we have now done that. And just to give you an example, the accelerator that was going to be housed under the Thane Global Impact Hub has been launched as a virtual accelerator right now. And as Padmaja very beautifully put it, most of the startups are really have demonstrated a lot of resilience, and I think that's something by virtue of being Indians. A lot of people have a lot of resilience, and the second thing that COVID is being forcing most of us is to also innovate. So we're we've always been accused of not being so innovative. We've been a back office country. We are IT outsourcing country, and I think this COVID is going to bring out a lot of innovation from across the value chain, whether it's the startup ecosystem or whether it's companies and corporates. We're going to see that shift. And third one is everyone is accelerating and embracing the whole digital world. So, virtual reality, all of these. I had, just talked to a startup which has been working on the AR, VR technology and construction, which has been traditionally, very, has not embraced technology as much because things were working great without that, has now actually started using AR, VR because there's no option. They are not going to be able to have, traditional format of showing their model homes. And this startup has integrated with one of the leading Pune developers, and they sold 40 units during the lockdown. And so I think a lot of innovation is going to come, a lot of forced acceleration, which will eventually be a fantastic thing for all businesses is going to happen. That said, yes, this is extremely difficult, challenging. For some, the shift is easier, some it's obvious, and for some, it's going to take a little bit longer to find that path. And during all this, I think what we are making sure we also as a company we do is we're ensuring all our colleagues, our teams, we keep communicating that we are ensuring that there is also wellness integrated into our communication, because it's not easy right now to handle. For each person, it's a very different challenge. So we're ensuring there is also wellness, and the communication is very positive from our end. Even though there are certain changes as organizations, everybody is making, I think we still have that human touch to care about our people. And that's something that we are actively demonstrating in various ways within the organization. So I will pause there as well so that we can, in the interest of time, ensure we address everything.
All right. Thank you so much, Lakshmi. And Shashank, can we, go to you for the brief introduction of yours and 100X?
Sure. Thank you, CK, for giving me the opportunity. Truly delighted to be here with the fellow panelists. As introduced by CK, my name is Shashank. I'm one of the partners at 100x.vc, a fund started by Sanjay Mehta. We launched the fund last year in July 2019 with the objective of investing in 100 companies through this instrument called iSafe, which is India's simple agreement for future equity. Since then, we've gone ahead and invested in 20 startups, and we are currently now finalizing the next set of investments. So, last 45 days have been busy for us in terms of managing our existing portfolio companies, as well as identifying the newest set of investment opportunities. The last 65 odd days have been very humbling for us as well, because for the first time we set out to manage our portfolio companies, and the COVID situation hit us, and all of them were in a lockdown. So we were in the midst of closing certain rounds, which were follow-on rounds for these portfolio companies. Successfully managed to raise capital for those open transactions and close them. Our portfolio included very sector agnostic companies. So we invested in dialysis center startup, which was a very asset light model, all the way to your usual suspects in deep tech. What we realized about the businesses like dialysis center, that doesn't stop irrespective of lockdown or not lockdown. Did fairly well. They happened to open a couple of centers, and certain B2B engagements for the deep tech startups also kind of came in, though the transaction closing kind of, I think, elongated. All in all, I think our take, and if I had to sum it up, our journey over the last 65 days has been that it has been an unfortunate scenario for the country, but it couldn't have been better timed for the startup community. I think in terms of correction, we are now accelerated, as Lakshmi also mentioned, Patuja mentioned. Certain sectors have suddenly moved forward and leapfrog. Case in point being education technology, which had not received its due credit for the last so many years. And we have one of our portfolio companies in that space has managed to close three academia institutions in India and in the Middle East over the last 45 days. So for the first time, startups now we feel are in a position where they genuinely can innovate with the help of accelerators and incubation centers, which have their own set of strengths, and the whole unique problems which we have. We anyways had a plethora of problems to be solved, and today for the first time, with the advent of geo and greater connectivity in tier 1 and tier 2, I think uh, this should be treated as an opportunity. And I think we are quite excited at 100x to see the kind of innovations and startups which are likely to come forward over the next few weeks. So that's from my side, right?
All right. Thank you so much, Shashank and Francisco. Thanks for your patience. And now, we would like to hear from you about a brief about you and your organization.
Yes, pleasure to meet you all. I want to thank everyone, and especially CII and Young Indians, not only because of the webinar, but that they've been instrumental for Scalable to open in India 2 years ago, and they've been partnering in our courses, so it's amazing. We're facing a really tough situation all over the world. I've been a digital nomad for the last 3 years, traveling every week to a new country. You can't imagine how my life changed. By chance, I got locked down in my home country. I came here for a week to deliver a course, and I've been staying here for 3 months already. Our community has already more than 1,000 members who went through our incubation or courses all over the world. So I have access by traveling, and especially by these courses all over the world and our alumni. I had access to Hong Kong, to India, to Brazil, to United States, to Europe. So I've been feeling the crisis all over the world. It's a very sad scenario with over 400,000 deaths already. And but what we did in the beginning was we put all the network together, and we first worked on our strengths. And our strengths is business model understanding, and we usually teach how to do very flexible business models with low fixed costs, with low assets, trying to have a good profitability and a lot of flexibility, thinking already towards the future. I think one important concept I want to transmit is This coronavirus crisis is only one event of many to come. I mean, they won't be always viruses, but the world is becoming very dynamic. Individuals are getting a lot of power through exponential technologies, and we won't face a centralized world in which governments or big corporations define the future. We will have a lot of little startups or communities of a lot of people joined by interests, passions, or values, building the new future. And we human beings are complicated beings. So in the same way many of us will make a difference, there will be many others generating a lot of problems. And the only way to stop those problems, as it happened in this same crisis, is people getting together and the silent majority acting or speaking out loud. What I saw this crisis that moved me a lot, besides our startups or Scalable or whatever, is people from our community started initiatives to try to help. So they started getting together to think how to build ventilators, to think how to print masks, to think how to help the sanitary system. And in a couple of days, more than 100, 200, 300 people were working together to build these ventilators, and they reached the government and they got there with a solution already done. They approved in the organ that needs to approve this to happen. Things went very quick because of individuals making a difference. So I think the startup mindset is very important for the future, and I think everyone should be trained on entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship and innovation are the art of doing possible, of making things possible. It's much more than building companies. Besides that, and to finish, from 1 minute to the other, Scalable lost all its revenue stream. We had our courses planned. We had consultancy with big corporations. I was traveling around the world to deliver these commitments, and I got trapped. So just one example, we decided to stop all our revenue and all our activities 1.5 months before I got into lockdown. I think by having reached to Hong Kong and China, where we have operations, I understood quickly this was gonna scale. So we decided to anticipate all our year projects. One of them was an online academy, an online course. And we've been lucky, we already launched the online course in English, in Spanish, and in Portuguese all over the world. The Spanish one has 2 editions already, so we were able to revert the situation. And many companies in our group have done the same thing. So within all the mess, this is good. And I think the worst thing you can do, and you could do from the start, is to wait till this finishes to reopen in the same way. I believe many businessmen are waiting for this to stop, for them to reopen in the same way, and the past is not coming back again. This has accelerated every trend to the future. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much for the introduction. And now I would go to Mr. Ravi. Ravi, if you can explain about what you do and a brief about yourself.
Thanks, CK. So my name is Ravi Ketiwari, and I'm the Trade Commissioner of Government of Ontario, Canada in Mumbai. I'm sorry, today I am on my handphone. The boring life of a foreign service officer, I do not know, had a challenge with some security problem with my laptop to access a video call through StreamYard. So, after hearing some exciting stories and work of my co-panelist, I would tell you the typical life of foreign service officer these days to help stranded citizens. And we are coordinating efforts to send them back to their respective countries. I think this is more or less with everybody. You reach out to anyone in diplomatic mission. That's what we have been doing. And apart from that, we have been engaging with corporate as my office, the mandates we have to trade and investment promotion. And so for that, with the corporate, the limited communication we have been having, that how to coordinate again the work of the essential supply chain request hydroxychloroquine, if they could send, the coordinating the shipments for essential supplies and all over. That's what the work I have been doing, and of course, like with this, we so far, I mean, now just started. I think this is my the second virtual engagement. We could not do that much, but going forward in month of June, we have some exciting virtual trade missions. So I would reach out to CII and Young Indians to help us with that. And I guess I would stop here. And of course, a pleasure to be among with some familiar faces today. Thanks, CK.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you so much, Ravi. And I think we can get started with the questions now. So we have drafted some questions, and then we have also received few questions from our viewers, that the online survey that we did yesterday. So I would like to start with you, Francisco. About we would like to understand more about you, that how COVID crisis will eventually evolve Latin America's technology adoption. You can give few examples of technology and innovation helping companies to restart their business operations, maybe?
Yes, I think COVID. Okay, departing on the problem of COVID, that it's you can't get in touch with people. It accelerated many technologies that were gonna be accelerated sooner or later, and we're already in the process. But for example, the first thing that got a big boost is online shopping, online marketplaces. The thing there is it accelerated small marketplaces. For example, entrepreneurs rushing to offer these marketplaces to restaurants or small shops. But on the other hand, I think the big winners of this trend will be Amazon, Mercado Libre in Latin America, Alibaba, maybe Flipkart in India. The main marketplaces are winning strong here. It even helped a lot the big corporations, no? If you take Amazon, Apple, Google, Microsoft, the big corporations got a lot of the money flew there, no? The money went to the safe place, and then they reported first quarter results, and they were good. But then on the startup ecosystem, online marketplaces needs to be complemented by robot deliveries. This is kind of not very advanced in South America, but it's very advanced in China, for example. Then you have the digital and contactless payments. This is an industry that is the more profitable one, the most profitable one within the startup ecosystem. Everyone is fighting for payments. You have from the traditional players, Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. Then you have all the independent startups. But then you have also Uber or Rappi or different type of players. Everyone is playing the payments game. Paytm was very strong in India. You have the remote work and the distance learning. In our case, we profited a lot from the distance learning, and we were able to grow a lot. And it's a good trend that I think it's going to help in the future. And people start to discover there's a lot of free content out there that they weren't using. Telehealth advanced also because you had a lot of regulations for startups. We had a couple of them in telehealth, and then the government is more open to allow this to happen when people need to go to the physician but can't be there. Online entertainment, advances on supply chain linked to cloud computing, Internet of Things, blockchain even, or AI. 3D printing was a boom because of the masks, because of everything you could do with them. And but I believe you had the big players that profited from this. You had the new startups that started linked to these technologies. You always, in a big change, you have the winners that were already there. So then they get a boost in their business. And you have a lot of companies that are starting to receive offers and try to listen more when they understand the need to change. So definitely the situation in South America, at least, will be the most challenging one. We haven't even finished autumn, and winter is coming. And if you check the cases, we have already almost 900,000 cases. People has been quarantined for a long while. They're very tired and they need to be there for 3-4 months more. They already opened quarantine in very many countries, and cases are scaling like crazy. So,
All
that's it.
right. Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. And I would move to Ravi. Ravi, since you are the only government rep here on this panel today, so if I may ask you about what governments, are planning and thinking and suggesting to the business owners, and how they are helping in the business operation restart process. If I may ask you this.
Okay. So, see, we being a network of overseas offices, one of the interesting exercise, I mean, which we were asked to do, to check that reopening marketing, this economic strategy of different countries. So I could share, I guess, that where I find that uniformity. So world almost together resorted to the lockdown, and then we had seen the way this stepping up of retooling and manufacturing of some products their respective jurisdiction. For example, in province of Ontario, we our auto parts manufacturers during the lockdown have started manufacturing of this face shields and PPEs and other medical supplies. And similarly, you see in India that India was not producing PPEs, now the second largest PPE manufacturer. So this is, I have seen that uniformity there as well. And when we talk about reopening, I think that again there was a uniformity that it has to be. So we should reopen, but we have to take a smart steps. We have to take one steps at a time. Have to see that how it works, and then we take the next step. So we have seen yesterday's Government of India announcement that there will be phase wise. This lockdown of different regions. So in and apart from that, another thing is that economic packages and this easing of fiscal and monetary measures by different governments. So of course, I'm not getting to the details. I could possibly share a little bit about Ontario, that what we have done in the last week of March. We have announced $17 billion package and $7 for healthcare and jobs, and $10 for the businesses. So $10 billion for the businesses. So these are the uniformities I have seen with the different countries. And some of the interesting examples while observing other markets, like some government are taking, that they have created portals to receiving that the challenges they are facing related to supply chain, and they are trying to address the problem, especially in Europe. And similarly, our leaders in Ontario, they have been constantly talking to the associations on the regular basis, daily basis, identifying the gaps and providing the assistance. So I think that that's where the uniformity I see in the similar different jurisdictions, how they are reacting to this a global problem. I think I would stop here. I could share possibly more during, if you would have any particular question related to our economic packages. Thanks.
Sure, we will get back to you, and I would request all panelists. So if you can confine your answer for in a minute or two, so that we can have more questions, because we'll be having questions. We are getting a lot of questions from the viewers as well. So once I am done, I'm gonna take these questions for you people. So in the interest of utilizing the time that we have got, so if you can please complete your answer in a minute or two max, that will be really helpful. So thank you, Ravi. And now I would go to Padmaja. Padmaja, I was reading a very interesting article yesterday, and you wrote it, and it was about entrepreneurs have two choices: to pivot or perish. There's really no third option. So I would just like to quote an example of one of our startup in Jabalpur, Madhya Pradesh, Adverto. So what they did was they chose to pivot, and they made few solutions like contactless sanitizer, contactless mask detection system, contactless the temperature measurement thing. So they chose to pivot, but they still, the small town startups, they struggle a lot. They have a lot of problems to face. So my question to you would be, if how do you think, what could be your suggestion to these small town innovators of our country? How should they respond and adapt to these new circumstances?
Thanks, CK. I think that's a pretty much a fundamental question, right? And to my mind, pivot or perish does not only apply to startups and entrepreneurs. It applies to all of us, honestly. I think this pandemic situation is not only health-wise, but pandemic even as an economic disaster. I think the only way we globally can handle it if we start to think differently. And the first pivot, in my mind at least, is the pivot of the mind. Each of us, in whatever we be doing, be it that we are students, we are startups, we are investors, we are corporates, we are government, I think the first big thing is to pivot your mind. Only then will anything work. I mean, the human mind is so powerful, number one. Number two, I think for startups, the pivot is even more important. They do not have the cash runway or the resources that perhaps governments or corporates or job seekers have, right? Job seekers don't really have to worry about where the revenue is coming. I mean, there are people who are focused on it, but not necessarily everybody. So I think they are actually cash strapped. They don't have resources. They're fighting against competition and big players. They have regulatory issues that they still need to do, and India is great for that. We are very famous for that, right? So I think what is very, very important is to say, how do I use a situation like pandemic or COVID, whatever, as an opportunity? And that's the pivot, to look for opportunities. This company that I spoke to you about the ventilator, Noka, that is what they did, right? There is an offline music education company, which is FSM. Within 4 days of lockdown, they shifted their entire online technology proposition, started moving on it, and within 10 days, they were on their feet with online students with revenues. Today, in 2 months, they have 60% of their pre-COVID students with 20,000 students online, which they had not thought of, virtual instruments. Okay, so I think the power of pivoting is, I can't tell you. I mean, if you don't pivot, you actually will not exist, period. We are in a situation where we have to go back to our basics in our daily lives. So how can we not go back to our basics in our intellectual lives, in our occupational lives, in our professional lives?
Yeah, thank you so much, Padmaja. And Lakshmi, I had another question for you, but I would like you also to answer the same question, because we need to understand from because these small town innovators, they have a lot of problems, and they are equally competent, if not more, when it comes to the big players of startups. So what do you think? How should they cater their problems? Who should they reach out to? And even they have their ideas. Even they read a lot of, everything is available on net now. So I would like to have your comments on that first, and then I'll have a separate question for you. Okay. I think.
Yeah. Hi. So basically, see, like you mentioned, this rural and tier 2, tier 3 town innovators, they definitely also sometimes do different types of startups. If they are not having, access to much funds, and they're predominantly acting as, bootstrapped entrepreneurs, and if they're serving more local markets, and if that's the kind of setup they have in, see, if there's no one blanket answer for such a question anyways, irrespective of the startup. Should we look for new opportunities and other ways to survive? I absolutely agree, but it may not be easy for everybody. It may not be possible for everyone. Even if I want to integrate technology into just shifting my company to be more digitally savvy, if I'm in a rural town and people have limitations, maybe sometimes people are not allowed to leave their homes and go and work, or they don't have internet access to enable all the technological changes that can help their business. So these are actually ground realities sometimes, in rural towns, like you mentioned. So the first thing is, obviously, if there is an opportunity to look and find other avenues of survival, I would say right now the key is to extend your life and see how you can get through this COVID phase. Your current business may or may not be relevant post COVID. That's a separate thing. But during this time, if there's absolutely anything at all one can do to survive, we have to look at those opportunities. Naturally, like, in a bigger setup, I would say, if you have teams and people, I would say, obviously you'll have to be very frugal there. You'll have to be more real, and see if you really need all of the activities you've been doing. Simplest things like, having a little office space and all this may or may not be applicable here. So I would say, like, to keep the answer short, look for survival opportunities. If that means finding new sources of income, it could even simply be, looking at masks. It could be, a dispenser, sanitizer, something as simple as that, which every local market also has been having a need. Or it could be, if you're digitally savvy, have the resources, can you look at, digitizing your business? If it's depending, like an education was an example, you can quickly shift to teaching challenges and things like that. Content is another one which has also content creation. People have been using TikTok quite innovatively. So there's a lot of smaller ways. I wouldn't say, every company is going to be successful in finding that big shift to make revenues quickly, but you just have to look at survival in the near term, and hopefully find the opportunities. Otherwise, just stay resilient, and this will pass, and we will find the opportunities.
All right, thank you so much for that insightful answer, Lakshmi. And Sashank, I would want your views on of the funding part. While VCs and angels, they help fueling the startups in normal times, but we believe that investors would tend to be more conservative, and the scrutiny would be a little tighter, and the deals will be, very closely looked into during the times of economic slowdown. So, what's your take on the funding aspect of startups? How should that industry or how should that help for startups will be phased out?
Sure. So I think this is the best time for startups to start building out businesses. That's my personal opinion. And the reason why I say this, because you need to identify investors in three, four categories. There are early stage investors like seed funds. That's like a typical 100x. Then you've got your angel investors through angel networks, through like Padmaja Mams, and then you've got growth stage VC funds, and then obviously you've got private equity funds. Now, obviously, private equity funds and growth stage VC funds will take a backseat, and they have been taking a backseat because they're trying to reinvest money into the existing portfolio. Because these are large companies, heavy funding has gone in, and we want to ensure that these companies are surviving. So that piece, you'll see growth stage VC funds investing lesser in newer deals. That being said, a fund like ours, uh, our thesis is to make fresh investments every 3 months, every 4 months. Typically, Padmaja Ma'am's angel network requires angel investors to engage with companies, and there we are continuing to invest. This is the best time to buy very early on, invest into early stage companies. The only difference which has happened, and I'll talk about 100x right now, we've been a very sector agnostic fund. That being said, we still continue to be agnostic, but we are taking a backseat on certain sectors. That's because we invest small checks. So we are looking for those companies to build a business, and their ability to raise a round within the next 6 months should be very, very important. And within that space, there are certain sectors which are not going to be doing well during this current crisis, and that is travel tech. We think, we could be wrong, but travel tech, mobility might take a backseat. Again, the verdict is all out over there. So my advice to startups is, this is the best time to, if you're thinking of an idea, roll it out, build it out, because investors like us are still looking to invest. Incubation centers are still wanting to incubate companies, and we're willing to engage with them. Growth stage VC funds might take a backseat, but then again, there's a long way for startup founders before they reach a Series A or a Series B transaction. So that's my quick take on that.
All right, thank you so much for that. And Lakshmi, the next question is for you. You know, we have seen many of your engagement, especially with innovators around the world. So I would like you to, tell us your views on the current innovation ecosystem in India, and especially in the heartland of the country, rural India, what we call is Bharat.
You want to know about the various innovations that are in rural India?
Yeah, I mean the current innovation ecosystem of India.
So, I mean, in rural India is going to be very different. So that's why I was specifying. But yeah, broadly, we've seen, several companies that have already been adopting for COVID, and that has been forcing people to innovate, forcing startups to innovate. One of the companies I personally invested in is actually a travel company, which is, obviously faced the brutal hit of COVID. And what they've done is simply pivoted to teaching cooking classes online. What they were doing initially in the travel space was curating unique food experiences. And since that's obviously not going to come back in the near term, they've curated quickly into offering classes for MasterChef kind of classes, and they've seen a spike in their revenue. So I think innovation is going to come across like that. There's a company in Bangalore which has been in the office automation, conferencing space, but during the COVID times, it has been, it's been getting the visibility that perhaps it would not have received in the past. So this company is called AirMeet, and I've used AirMeet, and it's been pretty good. So there are companies that haven't been in office automation or virtual reality. These companies have also started accelerating some of these plans. From an innovation perspective, of course, we are seeing a lot of AI coming in, because now companies have to go back to office spaces. We are saying, how do you have more contactless experiences in the office? So we're seeing companies come up with more, smarter visitor management software companies. We're seeing companies that are doing, I think there'll be a lot more use of robots for cleaning common areas, just to ensure, the space is more having less human contact. So I think those kind of innovations we're going to see, and adopting some of these new innovations is also going to be very high. People are very receptive to this. So this is a great time to bring such innovations to the forefront.
All right, thank you for that answer. And Francisco, I would like to have you to answer a question. You know, especially about this VC deals we see between Q4 2019 and Q1 2020 in Latin America. The deal is down close to 60 almost 60%. So how do you see that go in next couple of quarters of 2020? Because that's going to give a picture about how individuals are investing in startups and what is the mood of the market.
Yes, I agree a little bit with Shashank. Growth, VCs focused on growth or VCs focused on later stages are holding. And I think the system is going to change strongly. I don't believe it can survive the same way. We have an economic crisis, and startups need to start to be built in another way. That's what I believe. I think technology. What the trend we are seeing is we're even in the capital markets. We're starting to focus on startups that have a real possibility of solving problems or solving things without subsidizing anyone or without depending on a lot of rounds and not having profit for this to happen. If you take WeWork, if you take Oyo, if you take even Uber, you have so many cases of problems with the previous model that now everyone is saying, okay, SoftBank lost $13 billion. So the VC model is facing a tough time. I believe it's not just because the COVID. I believe this was going to happen. I've been talking about it for a long time. And I think we need to invest in more real, sustainable, profit-generating businesses for the future. And technology needs to leverage real needs and not to have a promise. For example, Uber. the flying taxis were gonna come with Hyundai, and then they were gonna have the self-driving cars, and then we're in this situation. They canceled every interesting project for the future. Now they're just a taxi company and they focus on food. But the situation is like you overpromise to get the funds, you never get there, you continue overpromising, everyone gets the fees, and this system can't go on much more, I think.
Yeah, true. So Shashank, on a similar line, I think you can also add on to what Francisco has said about this thing, and how do you see that go in India? And also, I would like to add another point to that. That the first check, there are many VCs now. There are very few government funds also are there to support the seed fund initiative. I mean, we have startups who need a seed fund. They need somebody to write the first check for them, and this valuation thing sometimes really box them down. So what is your take on that? First, the thing what happened to Latin America, like the deals are going down. How do you see that go in India? And second, the seed fund support to the innovators in India, those who are from small towns especially.
Sure. So, I'll be a little blunt on my answer. This might offend certain startup founders, but I think startup founders are just not doing enough today in India during the current, connectivity and the kind of platforms we have available, which was not there, let's say, and I'll ask this question directly to Lakshmi. When she started out as a co-founder, we did not have these seed funds. We did not have so many incubation centers, and we did not have information by the government online to access various schemes. Today, for the first time, tier 2, tier 3 cities, kids, founders have active cell phones with amazing data plans. They have access to information, yet they are not reaching out to incubation centers. They are not accessing the government schemes. They're not reading about it enough, and they're not approaching. So my only thought over there is that everything is out there in terms of seed funds, in terms of capital, in terms of the ability to build out new innovative solutions within incubation centers, with whether they are under Atal incubation centers or Department of Science and Technology. What we need now is for founders to start building it out, because as I said, funding for the first time India, I think, is the next. This is the next phase of evolution. I started being part of the ecosystem in 2009 when I was the founding member for VC Circle, and there we saw a lot of private equity funds come into India. Today, for the first time, we are sitting on a large set of seed investors. So there is capital. What we need is, because we are investors, we need tangible ideas. So at 100x, the kind of stage we are at, we are a discovery platform. We will invest in MVP, which is minimal viable product, to a proof of concept, all the way to early traction startups. And hence, we end up working very closely with incubation centers. We've invested in 20 of our startups. I think at least 5 of them or 6 of them were from incubation centers across India, or bodies like NASSCOM. So the only point I see is, this is irrespective of COVID or not. I think the next 10 years is very promising in my mindset. From an investment perspective, because I see a lot of potential in the Indian landscape, in the Indian ecosystem, within tier 2 cities also. Today, I think, and this, I'm just throwing this out, I think COVID has seen a lot of migrant issues coming up, which will also discourage people, students, educated lot who used to migrate from tier 1, tier 2, tier 1 to stay put in their respective cities and start building out local businesses. Can we then build out solutions, products which can be consumed within, let's say, as an example, Nagpur city and Vidarbha region, as an example, could be anything. So today we have that opportunity, and I think founders have everything today in terms of access to information. Today they can reach out to an investor on LinkedIn. I did not have that chance 15 years ago. It was difficult. Ask Lakshmi over here. Fundraising was quite different in 2009, and today it's not that. So these are my 2 cents. I think founders need to be more proactive. Founders need to go out, understand, research, build, fail quickly, and then come back again. Because today, for the first time, there are 300 plus incubation centers, accelerators. There are at least 100 plus seed funds. And once you cross the support system, you are now cut out to go ahead and raise a growth stage fund. So this is the best time to be building up. Sorry, I mean, I didn't mean to be harsh to the founder, but this is the reality. So they need to take advantage of this situation.
Yeah, that is true. I agree to that point completely. And Padmaja, the next question is about the funding thing only. What we see that most of the unicorns, they are highly valued, but so many of them are not profitable. Sometimes this is very confusing for the startups. When they do their valuation, they apply VC method and the whatever best practices that we have. They always tend to show that our startup is highly valued, and people sometimes miss the important figure of profit. So what's your take on that? Why we have so many startups, highly valued startups, but they're not profitable?
So, CK, the last question that you asked, that why do we have so many startups that are valuable and not profitable? Unfortunately, that answer I don't have, okay, to be very honest. Because I believe there are broadly two types of investors, okay? One who believe in the market share model, and the belief is that, the startup, I should not even say startup, the company keeps growing, creates value, and the investors of those companies sell those shares at a higher value and make money. Now, that is one philosophy of investing. The other philosophy of investing is what we call in our old-fashioned terms, and yes, I know I'm old, but that's okay, is where companies with strong foundations are built, where there is a top line, okay, there is a bottom line, there are unit economics, there are calculations of customer acquisition costs, there are very clear KPIs in the teams, there are very clear growth paths which are actually founded on some operational matrices. And I think that's another philosophy of investing. I'm not at all saying that one is better than the other. Please don't get me wrong. They're just two different types. Okay. In India, traditionally, we've seen actually the second category. You know what we call dhanda, where we say कि भैया पैसे बनाओ, वो धंधा है. Unless you have a profitable venture, unless you have a profitable business, there's no real reason to do business. That's my view. Okay, the valuation business or the market share kind of model is much more recent, right? Even in the consumer internet companies which have followed that, even today there is only one company which is making profits on the consumer internet in India, which is the largest, and it's Naukri. It's still making money. It's got cash reserves, right? So even consumer businesses, consumer internet businesses, or what we call business to consumer businesses, B2C, you can make profit. That is the proof. There are multiple times a unicorn, right? And then they have a portfolio of companies which have each of them are unicorns, like Policy Bazaar and Zomato. So the point is that it is a decision of the company and its investors, who are typically their shareholders, that what they want. One is not better and one is not others. Now, to come to your question, which is for startup entrepreneurs, my belief and my view would be that please build businesses with a strong foundation. Please build businesses not to raise money. The best way to build a business is with revenues. The less you raise money, the less you go to have external investors, the easier your life is. And you will build strong businesses with a focus of profit. Right? Why would anyone want to continue to build a business for somebody else to make money? I mean, entrepreneurs would be slaving 24/7, and actually somebody else would be making money. So if you're working so hard, please focus on the profit or profitability. And I have to add over here, I'm not saying that when investors like ourselves, be it the IN Angel Investor Group or the fund, we don't look at whether the company has profit or not today. We understand that's not likely to happen. But the point we look for is when is the company going to go break even? Is there a path to profitability? That is important. Okay. So I think, especially after the recession, especially after the pandemic and all the the collateral damage that has happened. It's extremely important for entrepreneurs, be it from tier 1 cities or tier 2 or tier 3 cities, to build strong, profitable businesses, because there's a massive liquidity crunch globally. To be able to raise money is going to be a hell of a lot of effort. And the number of companies which will finally raise money is going to be much lower in percentage. But good companies, in the same breath I'm saying this with a very, very clear message, good companies which are building where entrepreneurs are building the business for creating valuable businesses and not just to raise money, will also get money. We are investing. In the last 2 months, I have invested in 7 companies. Okay, plus 3 companies we have given a cash exit to our investors, each one, the least one being 15 times capital invested. Okay, and we have invested in overseas companies. So good businesses will get money because the business of investors is to invest. They also have to do their business. If they don't invest now, then they're not going to make returns. Right? So I think in summation, it's important to be entrepreneurs today because jobs are not going to be available. Right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. So creating good businesses is not a choice. It's almost an imperative. Building solid businesses is not a choice. It's an imperative because raising money is going to be hugely difficult. Okay? And for investors to invest in good companies is not a choice, it's an imperative because the valuation will be attractive and they also have to make returns. Right? The stock markets and the public markets are not giving those returns. It is the unlisted and startup ecosystem which is going to do it. And lastly, why is it important to create businesses? Is for actually creating jobs. Every new startup, founders, they start out, they will, as they grow, they will employ 5 new people. Those 5 people will go ahead, they go and recruit 20 more, and so on and so forth. So I think all in all, I don't see anything why anyone should not do a startup today, because there is no other option. And that's why I'm going back to my previous point. It's almost imperative that the startup ecosystem has to be supported. And I think it's a support not only from entrepreneurs themselves, they really are at the center and the heroes, but people on this panel and beyond are the ones who need to now come together. And I've seen this when we had these 2 months of pandemic lockdown. We had 17 task forces, 17 on IAN. Okay, every single day, including Sundays, we were doing from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock at night. Okay, we had academia, we had government, we had medtech people, we had domain experts from around the world, from Canada, from Brazil, from France, from Japan, from China, even China. We had investors, we had innovators, we had regulators, drug controller of India. Everybody came together. So there couldn't be a better point in life for startups to actually leverage this. सारी कायनात लगी हुई है आपको हेल्प करने में. अब ना करोगे तो कब करोगे और कब बनाओगे अपनी जिंदगी?
Thank you so much for the advice and the insight. And Ravi, I will take the next question to you. It's about the collaboration thing. The government across the world, including I read about India and UK, they're asking business and startups to collaborate. Now, both have stepped up. Now, what is your take on collaboration with the startups and industries within the country and even globally?
CK, can I interrupt? I forgot Francisco is on the panel and I was speaking in Hindi. Francisco, my sincere apologies. My last few lines were just to say, if you don't do it now, when will you do it and when will you build India? That's what I was trying to say. I'm sorry.
I spend a lot of time there, so I'm very used to Hindi. Thank you.
Ms. Rupara has made, I mean, she has just answered, that collaboration, that all of us are collaborating. And I have seen it different, from in perspective of our province. We have Ontario together. So all of our association, government have come together in creating platforms. So is the government of India. We have seen this, I'm following all the updates about India through this platform which Invest India has created. You could possibly see all the suppliers, all the databases available, the reports. So governments, in my previous, sessions to talk about, since we have been engaging with Indian startups, and when somebody asks me what it is required to, create that innovation ecosystem. So when I see that innovation ecosystem in Europe and North America, I see that government, academia, and private businesses, they all come together with the resources, and then they create institution. That's what I guess it was lacking in some jurisdiction in South Asia or Asia, I would say. So I think that is, but this challenge, it has taught us. I have seen that most of the governments have been collaborating together and association. So this is a wonderful time. We are seeing it. It all coming, and collaborative is the way forward.
Yeah, so that's the key. I think collaboration is the key. And now we'll just wind it up in about 2 minutes. So as we are winding it up, I would like you guys to mention just 3 words as a piece of advice to a young startup to survive and even thrive in this testing time. So maybe if you can do that in 3 words, I can start that from you, Ravi, in 3 words, if you like to summarize, and the 3 golden words for the startups.
What I have been hearing last 1 hour is, I would say, responsive, collaborative, and adaptive. And I would say that to startups, and I have seen that zeal. I have had experience, first-hand experience. I visited a year back to Bhopal to one of the startups, and I would say to take care of yourself and take care of people around you. So that's the message I would like to give to the startups. Thanks very much.
All right, Lakshmi, 3 words from you.
Frugality, pivot, and collaborate.
All right, Shashank.
Everybody's taken all the things I wanted to say. So, but yeah, I think instead of 3 words, I will say, startups operating right now, cash is king right now. So preserve cash. So hence frugality. I think that's very, very important. I think I'll keep it to 1 right now.
All right, Francisco.
Yes, my 3 words are read, value, and tea. Because the focus is on adding value to the stakeholders in the business, having tea with as many people as possible to learn and listen, and read. The entrepreneur who does not read is a tremendous disadvantage, is our phrase.
Maybe coffee also, if you don't mind.
Coffee also. It depends on what you want. You can have a juice also or a beer, but it depends on each of us.
All right, and ma'am,
I love
the
masala tea. That's why it comes to my mind. I miss it.
Yeah, we love it. Mumbai masala tea is our favorite. I think most of people love it. Yeah, Padmaja ma'am, last 3 words from you.
For me, I think it's leverage competencies, innovate with imagination, and execute with excellence.
All right, I think that comes up quite beautifully. So thank you so much, everyone, and it was such a wonderful and insightful session. We were receiving a lot of questions. I couldn't take all. So sorry, viewers, we cannot take all the questions in just one go. But what I would do is I would just pass on these messages to the respective speakers, because we have got few pinpointed questions as well about Jabong, about IAN, about 100x, because 100x is creating a lot of buzz in our small startups and for foreign delegates as well. So thank you so much, and I would look forward to host you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.